Why is it that? The left loves to claim characters to be gay, to be trans, to be anti-ICE. Didn't you know, chuds? This character is actually gay, because I said so.
Right-wing grifters claim they're just describing reality, but in reality they contradict their own worldviews, causing full-scale media culture wars built on false premises and fundamental logical errors. Let me explain.
I already saw homophobic/transphobic venerator players. We are claiming him for us. He's gay.
He equates a century-long geopolitical shift to a deadlock fan's satirical headcanon on Twitter. This Christianization was a long and gradual process that shifted society by infusing multiple dimensions with Christian values. The post on Twitter, on the other hand, is from a parody account that posts all day with no meaningful impact on anything whatsoever.
Another example is there are plenty of characters that are completely heterosexual, yet they're associated with homosexuality all the time because they constantly get shipped together. If you have a large enough LGBT presence in a community, in a fandom, you can unofficially make characters associated with homosexuality.
Ships and headcanon are a fun and lighthearted way for marginalized groups to achieve some sort of representation in a community where there would otherwise be none. Having characters in video games to identify with, sharing stories and experiences with, and discussing made-up scenarios with like-minded individuals is fun.
It doesn't matter if the character is actually gay or goes to gay bars. It's about the power and influence, the presence they have in the fandom.
Of course, it only becomes a problem when it's not heteronormative love. For those of you who have ever shipped characters, was it for a political goal? To push an ideology? Because for me, it was always about connection. I felt like I was a part of the story. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. I'd be very curious.
And this is something that the left is very conscious of. The idea that if just enough people believe something is true, then it becomes reality. Literally half of leftist politics these days is just an attempt to gaslight people into believing something is true when they know it is objectively false.
If the left is actually capable of simply shifting perceptions through sheer power, as he's implying, they wouldn't have the need to engage in these petty cultural wars or to even attempt gaslighting. They would just dictate the culture from the top down. And besides, you're making the left more powerful by ascribing them qualities which they do not possess.
The left is not the only one who can do this. Hayasaka from Love is War. That is a great example of people on the right taking symbols, characters, and associating them with ideas or ideologies on the right.
He rightly points out that the right engages in the very same tactics. Just as the right picked Hayasaka to project their ideological values and fantasies onto, the left picked My Hero Academia and made some characters queer. The only way this can meaningfully impact anyone is if you're a part of that specific community that is being referenced, or if you're just chronically online. In which case, you should really consider going outside. It's pretty nice.
Did the creator of the show intend for her to be used this way? Hell no. But it doesn't matter. Do you know why? Because with symbols, consent doesn't exist. It's all about the raw power, you say. Nothing else.
Oh my. If everyone engages in this, maybe it's not about cultural dominance as much as it is normal human communication. The need to fit in.
Because I want to fit in.
To be a part of a community. Minority groups do that because they feel so severely underrepresented in media. When everything one sees is always straight, you just crave to be seen. That is the inherent human desire to be acknowledged, not exerting power over another group.
But it's also true for words. For example, the word gay. Gay has been shifting in its meaning for the past couple of hundred years, but you can't simply manipulate language willy-nilly however you decide with an agenda behind it and be successful. That's just not how the world works.
Semantic drift and changing or evolving iconography have been happening forever and are natural processes of human culture. If a large enough group believes something to be true, it can become true, as he himself shows with the cross of St. Peter.
Because of people's ignorance of the cross of St. Peter, it was accepted and converted into a satanic symbol of rebellion and opposition.
This can be detrimental, as we can observe with dangerous conspiracy theories and harmful ideologies. Saying only the left weaponizes this principle while showing a totally insignificant example is a weak argument, considering that the right is known for reshaping narratives to benefit their ideology. Among the examples we have January 6th riots, election fraud myths, fear-mongering about BLM and Antifa, and presenting them as terrorist organizations, woke and DEI being changed to meaning anti-white discrimination and bad somehow. This is actually dangerous and is a concept called memory politics, which is exclusive to the right, by the way. Here, the past is intentionally misused and reshaped by far-right actors, going as far as vandalizing memorial sites, attempting to revise history, and portraying nationalist dictators as heroes heroes and saviors. The right also frequently victimizes itself, minimizing violence caused to actual victims and amplifying their own grievances, in turn hindering policies that could have alleviated these issues that minorities are facing.
The Bladensburg Cross Memorial.
This is actually a perfect example of memory politics.
Atheists petitioned and tried to get that cross removed on the grounds that there is separation between church and state. However, to nobody's shock, it failed.
The Bladensburg Peace Cross is a monument that is supposed to honor fallen World War I soldiers. The protest was about wanting to change the symbol to reflect the variety of the fallen soldiers' backgrounds.
So as a result, the Satanic Temple was pretty upset. In response to this, they decided to meet up to do an atheistic ritual, where they would claim the cross as a symbol of Satan.
The Satanic Temple protested after the Supreme Court rejected this proposal, not for ritualistic purposes or to conquer a monument, but to show solidarity to those who cannot be represented by this Christian monument. If you've made it this far and are enjoying this video or have learned something new, consider subscribing and being a part of this growing community. Many more of these videos will be coming, so make sure not to miss a single upload.
They operate under the principle that something just becomes true if it's widely accepted enough, especially since they don't believe that objective truth or objective reality actually exists. But once again, it failed because they don't have that much power or influence in the world.
Supreme Justices Ginsburg and Sotomayor stated themselves that this monument elevated the Christian religion over other beliefs, something that should not be the case in a country with religious freedom and equality. It failed because 5 of those justices were Republican and 6 out of 9 were Christian. Ginsburg was Jewish, hence her dissent, and Sotomayor seemingly had some empathy for other religions. Also interesting how he now claims that the left has no power to change anything in the world, when a few minutes ago he was fear-mongering about their ability to change the perception of reality. So in your eyes, is the left delusional or powerful now? Because they sure as hell can't be both.
Quick disclaimer, I'm not giving a prescription on what we ought to do, but I'm simply giving a description of what I see. If they were able to claim Venerator as a gay person, that would reflect a very strong LGBT presence in that community, in that game. You could say that the fandom is gay. It is essentially, at the end of the day, ideological conquest.
You clearly are prescribing the need to take back control of mainstream media, gaming, and entertainment media by implying the left's increasingly more aggressive cultural conquest. This is inflammatory and overly petty and will only cause more polarization in spaces that have already been taken over by politics.
What is the point of this video? What does changing a character, a symbol, a word do in real-world politics?
The point of your argument is that a powerful group is trying to claim a cultural asset to signal dominance over the opposing belief system. But I ask you genuinely, why would this be necessary if a group was already powerful and dominant?
A community claiming a symbol or a character doesn't win any sort of culture war. It's simply a result of a group of people, of a dominant ideology claiming something as their own. We took this thing because we are that powerful.
If the LGBT was so powerful, these characters would have been gay from the beginning. Gay headcanon and ships wouldn't need to exist. This is a severe over-exaggeration stemming from a tweet by probably a teenager who's obsessed with a game character. You've essentially created Schrödinger's leftists, a group that is simultaneously powerful enough to rewrite 2,000 years of cultural history, yet so weak that they can't change anything in reality. You can't be an existential threat and a harmless loser at the same time. You stumble from one false equivalence to another, contradict yourself constantly, and now your comment section is full of people that feel compelled to engage in a culture war against an invisible enemy that you created out of a simple fun tweet. Now that is some crazy obsession.
That's just how the world works.
See you in the next one.